Good evening. How are you? It's November 29th, 2022. I'm John Schenk. I'm your host of the Deerwood Realty live stream. Well, who is John Schenk and what is this about? Well, I am a manager, broker for Deerwood Realty. I'm the founding member of Deerwood Realty. We're a small residential brokerage and located in South St. Louis, Missouri. I help buyers buy homes. I help sellers sell theirs. At night, I do the live stream. And that's what you're watching right now. Normally 9 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Sometimes Saturdays and Sundays get a little bit dicey because I got to show houses or I've got offers to write or I've got something to do and I just can't be in front of the mic. I think we got a good show tonight. I'm going to talk about some Google Trends. The word of the year came out, which, had no idea. I had no idea what it would be until I read it. And we're going to go over it because it is a word that's come into conversation. And I don't exactly know how to use it correctly. Maybe you can help me. You can put it in the chat or put it in the comment. Go over the mortgage rates for today. We'll go over stuff on Twitter because I like Twitter. And then we'll go over some real estate news and commentary. One of the things we'll talk about is the definition of inflation and why does that matter? Things that homeowners regret about their kitchen remodels. I thought that was fascinating. Where are the home buyers relocating to when they're leaving? And the National Association of Realtors is certain that affordability is a supply problem and it seeks government assistance. I don't know if that's the case. I showed that tweet maybe yesterday or the day before. There's communities where people are losing their jobs, net loss in jobs. Building is continuing, and yet the prices are going up much, much faster than either of those two things. Is it possible that we've misidentified the issue here? Maybe it's not supply. I don't know. We're going to talk about that as well. I'm sure all of you want a basement update. Here's the basement update. Ever since I found out on Monday, yesterday. Boy, time is it goes by fast. Yesterday I found out that I have to dig up the whole sewer line for the kitchen line. So that means I have to break into my office, which is where I'm at now, and into the utility room and just basically dig a big old trench through concrete, finished flooring. It's just going to suck. It was deflating yesterday. Today it doesn't feel much better. And so that's where I'm at. Wanted to go over my day a little bit today because I think it was fine. Let's talk about it. Okay. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you might see buses driving by. Okay. So I live in St. Louis County. It's unincorporated St. Louis County. I'm listing a condo in unincorporated St. Louis County. Now, there's like 98 different municipalities in St. Louis County, and you're never quite sure if the county is going to do the inspection or if the individual municipality does the inspection or if they contract with the county to use their inspectors to charge you to do an inspection. And this is for occupancy now. So anything in the county of St. Louis that I can think of, except for a few municipalities where you don't need an inspection. Like Crestwood, for instance, you don't need an occupancy permit or reoccupancy permit. It's odd. Chesterfield is another one. So there's certain parts in St. Louis County that if you're a municipality, you don't need an occupancy reinspection when you sell your home. All things being equal, now you could have maybe an as-is sale where you're not promising occupancy, but I'd say 90% of the time you're going to get occupancy for your. Maybe that's too high. Maybe 80% of the time you're going to get occupancy for the buyer. So anyway, once you figure out, yes, I do need to get an inspection, and yes, I need to go to the county to get it. That gets fascinating too. It used to be that the county had two satellite offices, one in South County, one in North County, and then they had the main office in Clayton. And so what you would do if you needed an occupancy inspection as a realtor, you would run to the South County office if you were in the South, or you'd go to the North County if you were in the North, and you would apply and pay there and hope that they would call you the next morning. Now, the inspection process in St. Louis County is a joke in the sense that they call you between 7 and 8:30, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8:30 is when they call to schedule the appointments. So like if you don't get up at 7, it doesn't matter. They're going to get called anyway. So that's stupid. And by the way, you cannot call them back during the day at any point in time to set up an appointment. You can only call between 7 and 8:30, which is ridiculous. Par for the course, though. They've come up with this rule. And you may say, well, the inspectors have good reasons for this. Anyway. So then you get an inspection. Now, with the county, we've had massive home sales, okay, in the county. So you'd expect for them to be running behind, but that was then. We're not having this massive amount of housing need for inspections right now. They're still 3 weeks out just to get the inspection. Now, a normal real estate deal closes in 30 days, okay? You can't even get your occupancy inspection until the 21st day, okay? And you've already guaranteed that you'll provide occupancy for the buyer if you just go according to, the county's rules. But the great thing about the county is now that they shut the 2 offices because of the coronavirus. Now they still operate out of those offices. There's no problems there. They just don't have any people in there that'll take your money for the inspections. So you have to go online. If you do go online, and the person has never gotten an inspection before, you cannot order one online. You have to go downtown to Clayton and put in an application that way, put it in a box, and hope that they will call you. So anyway, I got the inspection today for one of my condos. It had never been inspected before. There were some issues that I thought were fair. A GFCI receptacle in the bathroom where there's water. That's fine. I have no issue with that. Smoke detectors. As long as you don't make them hardwired smoke detectors, totally fine in the bedrooms. I don't want anybody to get burned or anything. The anti-tip bracket on the stove, it's just something that they catch every single time. Accordion style drains always get flagged. Not a surprise. I was surprised the coupling now to the drain that got flagged, and every bathroom, which is amazing. But anyway, for a GFCI, okay. Now this is the bizarre part of it. The kitchen was probably remodeled before you even needed to get a permit for it. Probably. We're talking 25, 30 years ago. And so there was a microwave that needed a GFCI receptacle. Instead, it was just plugged in, which is fine. Again, I don't have any problem with that. But because it needs to be a GFCI, there's this stupid rule in the county that anytime you have to change a GFCI, change from a regular socket to a GFCI, which is pretty much every kitchen that was built, from 2000 and before, you have to have a permit for it. And who's going to pull the permit for you? Well, you're not going to pull the permit. You're going to need an electrician. It's called job protection, and it's stupid. It's got nothing to do with safety. The actual installation of a GFCI plug to change out from a regular plug is not a safety issue. Like, anybody can do it. It's the same screws. It's the same wires. It's absolutely a joke. So you run into these things. They're not blatant, they're not like you don't like if you don't think about it, okay, you don't notice what's going on. But so anyway, now I got to get a permit for this stupid condo electric. And it's like, it's just a nuisance. I don't think that I'm anti-inspector. I don't think I'm anti-inspection. But when you're a real estate agent, you have this real issue of you don't just go through the municipal inspection anymore. You also have a buyer paid for inspection. And we've talked about the just dirtiness of those people. If you're in with a real estate team, you're paying them for the real estate team for marketing. They're kicking back to you for services. So you're not just going in there looking for like nothing. Your inspection costs the buyer like, $1,000 or more. And for what? The seller's probably not going to say yes to all the things you would want them to fix anyway. And then even if then when they don't, now your buyer's out $2,000. And then the buyer comes up with this, well, you'll have to disclose that on your so what? So what? There's a crack in the basement. You have to disclose it that you didn't see. Okay, fine. Now there's a crack in the basement. Now what? It's just it's very off-putting. The inspection process, I understand it. I feel like I understand it as well as one can. But it's like, how do you have it where the county says it's totally okay to live in this property, and then you come back with $10,000 worth of repairs by a private inspector? Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. I'd be interested to know how your inspection processes go throughout the United States, and then what you think about them. And private inspectors miss things. Public inspectors miss things. I had a house in University City, which is considered a pretty strict municipality for inspections, and they came up with, they didn't care about the accordion style drains and 2 bathrooms. Now everybody else does, but they don't. And they didn't care about like some other things. I just found it to be strange. I don't know. So then I came home and we had a joyous occasion. My car has been returned from the shop. My car has been away from me for at least 2 weeks. I think maybe 3. And it was waiting for a part from Subaru. I have an Outback. I think the Subaru Outback is one of the best cars for being a real estate agent. You can put your sign in the back. You can go anywhere. It's not great on the mileage, but it's better than like a huge SUV. I don't know. It's good. It's enjoyable. But the alternator apparently stopped alternating. And they put on two remanufactured alternators, but apparently the computer wasn't friends with these remanufactured ones, and we actually had to get a completely new one from Subaru. No, it runs fine. Supposedly, I've only driven it once, but it felt so much better than my other car. Oh my god. So yeah, I got my car back. I had the inspection. Put up Christmas tree lights this afternoon. I know. I'm negotiating another deal with somebody right now. Going to take care of that tomorrow. That's the day. And I'm here and I'm streaming. And by the way, it was Tuesday, so it was Taco Tuesday. I had 2 tacos, 2 hard tacos, 3 soft tacos, right, for dinner. Man. By the way, I do want to say something about that shop. They had my car for 3 weeks. I'd taken the car in previous for them to fix the issue. I'd paid money for them to fix the issue. They put on the 2 alternators, had the car programmed, and put on the 3rd and final alternator all for free. Now, look, I could be mad at them, right? They didn't fix my car. They've inconvenienced me severely. But as a consumer, how am I going to get upset about the fact that they didn't charge me to fix the problem in the end? I want to express this to you because I understand other people think differently than I do. Other people would be like, well, they should be paying you to fix your car, which I don't get as a business owner. I mean, free is very expensive. I mean, think about the techs that worked on the car. Think about, they had to order, the one guy is an outside guy to come in and do the electric. I mean, they did not make money off of this deal. So I don't know. I feel happy about it. Hopefully you do too. Or you're like, why are we talking about cars? Because, I want to do a little bit more about my day. So that was the day. I've taken 2 aspirin so that I can move. I've been up and down on a ladder. I put lights up on 2 houses today. Are you ready to get into the main show? I guess we'll do it then. Here we go. I don't know where we're going to end up going, by the way. That's not what I want to do. I want to do this. Okay. All right. Do you know? Okay, so Merriam-Webster came up with the word of the year. Do you know what the word was? Gaslighting. Have you heard gaslighting before? We'll go over the definition, then we'll go over use. And I just want, tell me in the chat, tell me in the comments, what do you think about the word gaslighting? It's not one that I'd ever heard prior to maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't understand it. I don't know if I'm dumb. I just can't figure it out or what it is, but I don't understand. Stop gaslighting me. You're gaslighting the public. It doesn't work for me. It's not a word that I would ever use. So here we go. Let's look into it. Gaslighting. Merriam-Webster picks its word of the year. This is from BBC News. It says, when British playwright Patrick Hamilton wrote Gaslight in 1938, little did he know how often the word would be used in the 21st century. Now, is Gaslight the name of a play? It says gaslighting originates from a 20th century British play of the same name, later adapted for the screen in the US. It says Merriam-Webster, America's oldest dictionary publisher, has just chosen gaslighting as its word of the year. Searches on its website for the word have spiked 1,740% in 2022, according to the company. Gaslighting is the act or practice of grossly misleading someone, especially for one's own advantage. So does the person have to know that you're grossly misleading them for it to be gaslighting? I'm sorry, let me check this. Sorry. So gaslighting. So it says, in this age of misinformation or fake news, conspiracy theories, Twitter trolls, and deepfakes, gaslighting has emerged as a word for our time, Merriam-Webster said in a statement on Monday. So I don't understand the premise. Okay. So it says, in this age of misinformation. Okay. Are we assuming that there wasn't misinformation throughout American history, at least? Are we assuming that there weren't conspiracy theories? I mean, who shot JFK has been a conspiracy theory from the get-go. What was a conspiracy theory? The UFOs. Those weren't real, right? I'm not saying they are. I don't know. I'm just saying that the government came out with, like, here's the things that we think might be UFOs. You can tell us if you think they're not. But this is the work we did. Twitter trolls and deepfakes, gaslighting has emerged as a word for our time. It says, curiously, search interest in the world was not driven by any single event, the company's editor at large told the Associated Press. It was a word looked up frequently every single day of the year, Peter Solkowski told the U.S. Wire Service. And look, or Sokolowski, even when you've given me the definition, the act or present practice of grossly misleading someone, especially for one's own advantage, even when you've given me that, it's not something that I would use. It's not a word I would use. It says gaslighting derives its origins from Hamilton's Victoria area playset in London about a middle-class marriage based on lies and deceit. Lead character Jack Manningham seeks to convince his wife Bella that she is going insane, including by saying she is imagining the dimming of the gaslight in their home. The play was twice adapted for the screen in the UK in 1940 and then in the US in 1944. The American version, which stars Ingrid Bergman, won 2 Academy Awards and is preserved in the U.S. National Film Registry as a culturally, historic, or aesthetically significant work. So National Lampoon's Vacation's obviously in the film registry, right? I've never heard of the National Film Registry until today. But obviously, I don't know about European Vacation, but, Vacation has to be in there. Leonard, part 6, probably not, or maybe being taken out because of the presence of Bill Cosby in the movie. I don't know if anybody's going to get that as humor. I'm really sorry. Look it up. Leonard, part 6. It says, but as Merriam-Webster notes, while the term referred primarily to psychological manipulation in the 20th century, its modern use is driven by the vast increase in channels and technologies used to mislead people, especially in personal and political contexts. I mean, there is no universal one truth. And I don't understand where we keep going wrong with that. Like, history is normally written by the side that wins. It's so odd to me, like, how many different, like, I would say, layers of the onion or shades of any story we read there are. It says also on Tuesday, the company noted several other words were among its most looked up this year. So they're oligarch. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get thrown off YouTube. Codify, LGBTQIA, sentient, Lomi. Well, now Lomi I would not have. Raid and Queen Consort. I don't know. Do you guys use gaslighting? You're gaslighting me. I just don't get it. I'd like insight, please. Someone tell me they know why people are using the word gaslighting. I think it's just a cool word. Moving on, since I am a real estate agent, I do care about mortgage rates. What did the mortgage rates do today? We're on the Deerwood Realty page. Well, that's a pretty house, but it's got a tuck under garage. I don't know. Let me make sure I'm sharing this still. Okay. It says a 30-year fix went to 6.65%, up 3 basis points from 6.62%. We're getting this period of kind of like stability that we haven't had in a long time. I mean, we've basically been in a range between 6.7 and 6.6 for the past 2 weeks. if you look at this chart, if you can see it, I mean, I'm sure it's difficult to see. I mean, if you look at it, you can see though that you've got this. It's just kind of staying in a line right now. It hasn't been in a line in a long, long time. I would like the rates to be at 5.5%, 30-year fixed. I would like that. I just feel like that's a good number. When it's really high, you just kill affordability for people. When it's really low, you cause the manias that you've caused in our real estate world. And I don't think that benefits anybody. Okay, so to me, assets are being manipulated. Financial instruments are being manipulated. Okay. Housing market is being manipulated by cheap money. Like startups, venture capital, things of that, cheap money. Like I'll tell you one, like Open Door, they've been given, I think they've been given $1 billion in their lifetime, and they're going to lose $1 billion in a quarter, I think, coming up. It's just like, it's cheap money. It causes more inflation. I would just like a solid monetary policy that we could kind of bank on. Like the Fed's going to over tighten. There's no question. Everything that they read is a lagging indicator. And they've already said they don't mind 4 to 5% unemployment. Now, look, full employment is only like 3.5%. It's not ever going to be at zero. But even that, 2 percentage points, that's going to kill a lot of families' abilities to afford things. It's just frightening to watch people play with the economy. Like I don't advocate. I mean, under a Republican administration or a Democrat, I don't I just find it to be very frightening. And I'm not convinced that the Fed's going to get this right. Moving on, let's go into some tweets. Lance Lambert, the fact that, by the way, this is a very. I thought this was very good. He wrote originally, we're in the second biggest home price correction of the post World War II era. Here's the 3-month change in U.S. home prices from Case-Shiller. You can see that look at that absolute decline. It says, the fact a 2% national home price drop qualifies as the second biggest correction of the post-World War II era explains why 2008 blindsided the country. In the early 2000s, people didn't think prices could drop. This is true. You were always told, how much does real estate appreciate? Well, about an average of 6% per year. So it became, well, we need to buy real estate because it just always goes up. And then and you know what? Everything was predicated on the monthly payment, right? There was all this mortgage-backed securities that you could, collateralize. And man, did they. I guess one of the questions would be, John, are you surprised that the market changed so quickly? No, when you screw with affordability, and doing it so quickly, raising the rates so quickly. Now, they didn't raise the mortgage rates, they raised the borrowing rates, but at the same time, the treasuries and everything, cause a wider spread in the rates between the borrowing rate and the mortgage rates, which is fine. But it just doesn't look real positive. But the issue is, I've been hammering on this stuff since January. And I don't know. It's very bizarre to watch this because I was around during 2007 and I watched what people did, and it wasn't necessarily according to law. They just wrote new laws. They literally wrote themselves out of it. Like the debt servicing laws or the debt laws for bankruptcy and the orders. Chrysler they ate it. Okay. The bondholders should have been paid and they were not. The judge said that was okay. They had priority lien status over the stockholders and they still didn't get it. So, we're going to paper over this, okay? This is going to be a problem, and it's going to get papered over. And it's like, kick the can down the road, but I just don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to do it. This is Adem Tumerkan. It says the Bank of America is quoting, investors have lost an estimated $22 trillion in equities, bonds, cryptocurrencies, and real estate, which could mean a $700 billion hit to consumption and maybe more. Via lag effects and the declining personal savings, I wouldn't be surprised wealth affect withdrawals. Now, look, I'm surprised it's so low. If you lose 22 million, okay, and only that's less than $1 trillion, or 1/22nd of a trillion. I don't know if I did my math right, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. I mean, don't you think it would be more of a hit to consumption? Diane Swonk, I always feel like she's pretty much like exactly in step with the Fed. It says from Nick Timmeros, home price declines accelerated in September. All 20 cities in the Case-Shiller Index posted monthly seasonally adjusted declines in prices. U.S. home prices fell 0.8% last month, and were down 2% in the third quarter. Now, what do I want to say about this? First off, St. Louis is not like Chicago. It's not like Des Moines. It's not like Fayetteville, Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Not like either of those two places. It's its own place. We're not showing up on the top 20 cities anymore. I mean, we've fallen. I would say, like, if you were talking to a real estate professional right now about listing your home for sale, let's just say in like San Francisco, because we're going to get to that market in a little bit, and they say, oh no, the market's strong, everything's great, don't worry, I'd be suspect. I think that would be a natural thing. In St. Louis, like I have said, when people are looking to sell their house, I'm like, you need to price it right, because if we come to the market too high, it's going to sit and you're going to take a multi-$1,000 hit. Now, I'm sure other agents go in there and say, oh, no, the market's great here in St. Louis. I'm not saying it's terribly bad. I'm just saying, I mean, there's a certain strategy involved here that you might want to go with. Does that cause me to lose clients? Maybe. It's very hard to go against the narrative. Anyway, let's continue with her response. It says, housing recession deepens and moves further into next phase. Declines in home values have shorter lags than increases in home values in inflation measures. If we see a drop in home values year over year in 2023, cooling inflation could be more rapid than some expect. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, it's tough because, we don't know exactly what she's saying. More rapid than some. Does that mean like 3 people? A couple is 2? A few is 3? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know some on this definition. If you find one person that disagrees with you, does that make it some? Or one would expect? Jeff Weninger, housing slowdown. This is the home builder sentiment has collapsed. This is his graph. I mean, you look at 2007, everything really in this market now is how close is it to 2007? That's literally what you do. You don't waste your time with any of this. By the way, this weird one in 2000 or 2019, that was ridiculous. That was our own forced error on that one. I understand it. But that is just wild. Home builder sentiment. This one here, I got to go up here. This is Daniel DiMartino Booth wrote, Never know how to be, well, so here we go. Never know how to be quite polite in these cases. It says to clarify, the CARES Act was signed into law March of 2020. The federal rent eviction moratorium ended September 30th, 2021 with required 30-day grace period. Red state evictions began November 2021. Blue states extended moratoriums help. It says, this fellow wrote, nobody got free rent for 19 months. What little they did get will be made back quick, considering rents are up 12% to 16% year over year. The ruled class is the one footing the bill of the ruling class. Don't get that twisted. And then a realtor out of Florida, Trisha, wrote, can show court filings on a home purchased January 2018 for $165,000 with a mortgage of $162,000, defaulted by August 2019 with a $158,000 principal. I don't know what OS means. I'm not really good with shorthand. I admit it. It says foreclosure started September 21. Still no judgment. No mortgage payments, property taxes, or insurance paid in more than 3 years. Easily added $50,000 to the mortgage. Lived for free. Negative amortization. It says some fellow writes government policy at its best. And she says, yes, add in the CFPB and things get even worse. Borrower just kept avoiding service and finally, once served, applied for a modification. This triggered a continuance. Never hired an attorney. Bank's attorney just kept representing the borrower too. I mean, the one thing I would say that I saw in my own life, in my own time, is the last mortgage, the last housing bubble crisis. Look, there are people that lost their houses. It was bad. But there were also people that just literally walked away from their house, okay, because they thought they were never going to get their money out of it. Went and straight bought a new house that was bigger, that was foreclosed from someone else. Quite the step up, okay? And then turns around and stops making payments on the original house. So that one goes into foreclosure and that gets cleaned up as well. And you say, well, it'll affect your credit for 7 years on a, I forgot even on the, not an eviction, but I forgot the word. Anyway, what is a foreclosure? I'm sorry, on a foreclosure. So what? I'm living in a nice house. I'm living in a nicer house than I was, and I'm paying less for it. I mean, people know how to use the system. You can make the system as complex as you need to. People will figure it out. And people have figured out how to get around this silly thing about paying rent or mortgages. Not all of them. Not all of them. Some of them really need the help. I'm just saying it's being abused. Stephen Punwasi, I'm going with. He's a Canadian. We've read some of his tweets before, but I thought this was funny. It says it's kind of wild how you can trace the decline of America back to HGTV in the early 2000s, convincing people with no skills that they can just enter real estate. I mean, I entered real estate in the 2000s. For real, you can literally see the shift of power and trade occur around the early 2000s. That's when Scott and Brenda realized they didn't save enough for retirement and determined they needed to collect a third of income from someone who does actual work. And here's your little chart for the larger trading partner. So then it says, then someone disagreed. They said decline. Their tech sector has boomed since then, hasn't slowed down until now. It says the perspective is skewed very much towards people in the West. The reality is most of the world is now depending on China's tech sector and their imports. And then people got crazy, which is what I'm here for. I like to laugh. It says it's 100% the fault of those amazing chief builders from the 2003, 2005 Global's Rona Dream Home and the 2007 HGTV's Designer Guys 3. Tipping point. Go ahead, cast your blame. And then somebody else wrote Ruin Discovery Channel and TLC2. Bring back the answer, guys. And then this guy here wrote something funny. Then someone else did a flip this house. They changed the siding. And then this guy here, I thought this was funny. It says, how many marriages have failed due to HGTV inspirations that led to a shit show? My poor brother has had to redo his kitchen every 5 years to stay married. He has to be up to 3 breakfast nooks by now. Ha ha. Why do people have to eat in a nook like some sort of rodent? They too good to eat with their head over the sink like the rest of us. That's exactly how I eat my breakfast every day. Kitchen tables are for keys and junk mail. All hilarious. Okay. All hilarious. Fantastic. Let's continue. It says, to be fair, it's worked so far. It says, there's nothing wrong with turning old homes into new upgraded ones and revamping the neighborhoods. It limits urban sprawl. Imagine what it did to the Formica industry when HGTV made granite countertops the bare acceptable minimum. And so then another guy says, I think the turning point was Simple Life. This is the one that got me as well. It says, House Hunters always got me too. House Hunters International. I'm a butterfly therapist. I'm a stay-at-home astronaut. Our budget is $3.2 million. Man, that's what I saw that was just wild. Like, I don't watch HGTV very much. Like, I don't want to be reminded of real estate any more than I'm already reminded of it all day long. But my wife gets sucked into that channel, and it's just fascinating to watch. I'll stop by, and like these people are like Love It or List It. That was my favorite one. It's like, there's these people and they're like, I only want to spend 1.5 million. I'm like, I'm a music teacher. I'm like, what? It's so strange. Still is. I know from experience, I know somebody that was on a reality TV show that they produced here in St. Louis. And I know that she was married to somebody in the show, and they were posing as a couple on reality TV, and they weren't a couple or anything. The whole thing was fake. And, I feel like, so for like Love It or List It, they go to 2 other homes or 3 other homes, I think. It's been a while. And it's like they have all this information about the seller, right? That the listing agent would never give you. And they have all this time to go through the house and talk about stuff and come up with these elaborate budgets and stuff. And then they get to make their decisions over like the course of a month. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, that does not happen that way. If I even asked to look at a house that's under contract, they say no. If I asked to look at a house and say, can I shoot a TV program in it? They'd be like, no. It's just weird. I just thought that was an interesting tweet. Hopefully you enjoyed it. By the way, if you want to follow any of those people on Twitter, go for it. This is who I follow on Twitter to get, some perspective in the real estate market, because what happens is like I get stuck. Like I'm in St. Louis County. I'm doing much of my business in St. Louis County or South St. Louis City. And, like there's a whole big world out there. It's not just contained to St. Louis. And I need to get perspective. And Twitter gives me that perspective, that ability to go outside of my own comfort level, which is St. Louis, and, see trends that may be happening in other places that haven't hit St. Louis yet, to get some sort of insight. I don't know. It's what I try. It's worked so far. This is from Wolf Richter. The most splendid housing bubbles in America, November update. Deflating everywhere, fastest in San Francisco and Seattle, Phoenix and Dallas roll over too. In several markets, prices plunged even faster than they'd spiked. That's pretty wild. So this is in San Francisco for the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. Now they say the data in the Case-Shiller is always a lagging indicator. But if you look at this chart, look at it just way up and then just wham. And then so here's housing bubble 1. See how it went like that, and then more of an angle, like over 2008, 2009. This is coming down faster, and it's in the same year. Like, I don't know if you guys realize, you do know I'm going to be unemployed, right, for a while. Like, the market's going to tank hard. People are not going to be able to afford mortgages. And, like, my business is going to be off a significant amount. I'm just banking on it now. I'm not proud of it. I'm just, like, not a whole lot I can do when the market just eats it. This is the last one. I wanted to do it just because I thought it had some interest. It says Wall Street is bailing. This was on November 23rd. I think I covered it at the time, but the thread is just kind of kept going, and I want to continue with Wall Street is bailing on the Phoenix housing market. Investor purchases down 49% year over year in Q3 2022, below pre-pandemic levels. Q4 will look even worse. Data comes from Redfin, and so it just shows like the investor purchase is just going through just the floor. Similar to what happened in like 2020 with the Rona. It says real estate investors are also bailing on Portland, Vegas, San Francisco, Atlanta, and Charlotte. Investor purchases down 30% year over year nationally. I actually had, no, that was South Carolina, never mind. And then Darth Powell, one of our fun people to watch, says this looks bad. That was on November 23rd. And then Adam Taggart, which we also looked into, he said, I've warned frequently that a big risk of having large investors comprise such a big part of residential housing demand is, number one, they can turn their buying off on a dime. And two, if they get in trouble, they can dump a ton of inventory on the market all at once. And this is true. I don't know that we need massive corporations involved in home buying of single family homes. Like, I don't know that that's a good thing. I don't know how you're going to stop it. I don't know how it should be regulated. But it's just like, I can understand home builders, okay, buying swaths of land, going through the development process, the subdivision process, and building houses. That's a whole lot different than some agency just buying up a bunch of houses and trying to sell them for more money without doing any work or very little work. And so here's an addition to the article. It says FHFA, house price ratchet mechanism, rising Fannie and Freddie loan limit function as the ratchet's prowl component, wedging the teeth and creating a higher floor price. Loans eligible for backing by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will rise to $1 million, over $1 million. And then Nick Silvera, which is who we I don't know, we linked to, says the government loves to keep its people suppressed with an overwhelming amount of debt they will never be able to pay off. Student loan debt, mortgage debt. Absolutely. I was working yesterday. Oh, and then finally Darth Powell comes back and says, having to work, distracted, stressed, and unhappy. Otherwise, you'd be able to focus on the real problems. I was in a conversation with my stepdaughter who wasn't around. I was talking to myself and thinking about what I would say to her. And it was like, look, it was like interest, like you think that interest isn't bad. Okay. Like you go get a car and it's like, I don't know, it'll probably be 6% interest right now. That's not bad, right? I work, and then for the ability to work, I get to if I just pay this little bit of money, I can afford a car, a real nice car, and I can make payments on it over 5 years. I do not. I mean, look, there are people smarter than me, way more intelligent than me, but I have never figured out a good case for buying a car on credit. I mean, especially as a depreciating asset. I mean, as an individual too. As a business, I could definitely see some sort of tax advantages there. But my God, I mean, like it's a new Ford pickup truck's probably in the 50s or 60s. Okay. And you're going to finance that over 5 years. Like what is the truck going to be worth in 5 or 6 years? Well, 5 years. Why would you get a mortgage, or not a mortgage? Why would you get credit for an asset that declines in value? And so watch, now do housing. Okay. We saw it in the first tweet. People don't believe that housing ever goes down. In our history, it's kind of proven that if you just hold on to a house long enough, you won't lose your behind, in theory. Like right now, I'm fixing a sewer. I still feel like I'm going to have equity in the home once I replace the sewer. Okay. I'm not really worried about it because I bought a house in like 2007, right at the top of the crash. top of the market. But I've stayed here, and we've now exceeded those highs in 2007, so I don't feel too bad. But anyway, going back, why would you work for the privilege of paying other people? If that makes any sense. So like, let's just say I go to work and I get $1 and my car costs maybe 10 cents of that in just interest. My house costs another 10 cents of that. Maybe I have high credit card debt, so that's 18%. Like 40% of my income is going out on credit. Like just paying off the minimum. It doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone live that way? And I'm not. Look, I guess I'm very, very conservative financially, but I watch people that make fortunes, more money than I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely broke because they can't afford to go anywhere because they're so far in debt. Doesn't make any sense. Put it in the comment section. You can tell me I'm wrong. I've seen people justify getting leases on cars as individuals, not as businesses. I've seen all kinds of people tell me all kinds of financial things that are supposed to be advantageous for you. But I mean, when I look at the analysis, I don't see it. Let's get into our news. I thought this first article was interesting. This was on Schiff Gold, Peter Schiff. He didn't write it. It was Michael Mahari. When people talk about inflation today, so anyway, why the definition of an inflation matters. So as I've shown you over time, we have an issue where people change the definition of words but don't tell you. And so you're using a classical definition of something, and then that's not the way the word is defined anymore amongst the apparetic. I'm trying to come up with an example for you of a word that doesn't mean what you think it means off the top of my head. Affordable housing. That's 2 words, but I mean, you get the point. So it is good. It is good to come up with, what are we talking about? Maybe we're talking about different things. So it says when people talk about inflation today, they generally mean rising prices as measured by the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. But historically, inflation, by the way, here's another one. We're not in a recession based on the definition of a recession. So the recession word doesn't mean what it did before. But historically, inflation was more precisely defined as an increase in the amount of money and credit causing advances in the price level. Let's read that again because it's not like, but historically, inflation was more precisely defined as an increase in the amount of money and credit causing advances in the price level. Inflation used to be understood as an increase in the money supply. Rising prices were a symptom of inflation. I find this change in definition problematic, but many disagree with me. They argue that I'm being pedantic and the definition doesn't really matter all that month. In a social media exchange, I argued that rising oil prices due to the invasion of Ukraine weren't technically inflation, but are better described as price shocks. Price shocks do, in fact, raise prices, and those price increases can cascade throughout the economy. But unlike price increases due to an increase in the money supply, decreases in other areas of the economy will ultimately balance out price shocks absent inflation as people shift spending patterns. For example, if people are paying more for gasoline, they may cancel vacation plans. This drop in travel demand will cause hotel prices to fall. In contrast, a rise in the money supply or inflation will cause a general rise in the prices with no corresponding price decrease. Now, that's what I think. This is where I'm at. Joe, a commenter on Facebook, disagreed. You're wrong. What you call a price shock is in fact inflation. The bulk of inflation is in fact Fed debasing the currency, as you note. The inflation of prices is also a function of market forces that have nothing to do with the Fed. These pale in comparison to adding mega trillions of dollars to the currency supply. If you read carefully, you see that Joe simply substituted the current definition of inflation for the historical definition. He lumped price increases caused by the Federal Reserve monetary expansion and price shocks together under one banner, inflation. So what's the problem? Yeah, what is the problem? How do we understand this? Says, I can understand why people might think this is nothing more than semantical nitpicking. After all, word meanings evolve over time. When I insisted on the classical definition of inflation, Joe argued there was no reason to hold fast to archaic terms. It says that you believe in modern vernacular of the term includes many things you think did not used to be in the term as meaningless. Why should I care about anachronistic use of terms? I speak in a modern vernacular. I, for example, don't speak in Elizabethan English, so I'm not a King James Version kind of guy. Likewise, I won't insist on something from the 70s because economic policy 50 years ago doesn't mean a whole lot to me right now. I've seen that, okay? I've seen that. I see it in our culture. It's this argument that says if it was relevant some odd years ago, it's very hard to figure out what number that's going to be. This here they used 50 years ago. If I use 20 years ago and say this was true 20 years ago, what relevance is it now? It's ignoring history. It's like 2007 happened, okay? But we're going to forget that it happened because it's not relevant to right now. I don't know. I feel like there's patterns that we can watch and we can learn from. And if we do certain things or if we don't do certain things, we're not beholden to that pattern. We can make changes. But if we don't pay attention to those patterns, you're just doomed to history repeats itself. Maybe it's not true, but man, it seems like it does. It says the problem is that this change in definition creates confusion, and I believe that is precisely why government officials and academics who support them have worked to change the common meaning of inflation. Economist Ludwig von Mises warned about this shifting definition decades ago in his essay, Inflation and Unworkable Fiscal Policy. Mises reiterated the precise definition of inflation. Inflation, as this term was also used everywhere, and especially in this country, means increasing the quantity of money and banknotes in circulation and the quantity of bank deposits subject to check. Okay. Over the years, the government, along with its apologists in the corporate media and academia, altered the definition. Why? To suit government purposes. The standard definition of inflation bandied about today is nothing more than government propaganda or gaslighting. Mises explains the problem with this change in definitions. People today use the term inflation to refer to the phenomenon that is an inevitable consequence of inflation, that is the tendency of all prices and wage rates to rise. The result of this deplorable confusion is that there's no term left to signify the cause of this rise in prices and wages. There's no longer any word available to signify the phenomenon that has been up until now called inflation. As you cannot talk about something that has no name, you cannot fight it. Those who pretend to fight inflation are in fact only fighting what is the inevitable consequence of inflation, rising prices. Their ventures are doomed to failure because they do not attack the root of the evil. They try to keep prices low while firmly committed to a policy of increasing the quantity of money that must necessarily make them soar. As long as this terminological confusion is not entirely wiped out, there cannot be any question of stopping inflation. We need to stop inflation. It's not good. Not a good situation. It says, in other words, the modern definition allows policymakers to shift the blame to other things while continuing their expansionary monetary policy. Keep in mind, the Federal Reserve and all global central banks constantly inflate the money supply as a matter of policy. After all, the inflation target is 2%. It is. It is. In fact, inflation is a stealth tax. It is. The inflation tax is the primary way that the U.S. government finances its deficit spending. The federal government spends billions of dollars every month, but it doesn't collect enough taxes to cover its costs. That means it has to run deficits. The Federal Reserve monetizes those deficits. In effect, it prints money. They call it quantitative easing. But when you boil it down, they're just inflating the currency. As the money supply grows, prices rise, and you feel the pain every time you go to the grocery store or the gas station. The government is getting bigger and bigger, and the families across America are bearing that burden through higher prices. Facts, not gaslighting. The government loves the inflation tax because it never has to accept responsibility for levying that tax. It can blame all kinds of other factors: corporate greed, the pandemic, Putin's price hikes, oil shocks, for oil shocks. This is especially true if you redefine inflation as simply rising prices. You lose the ability to parse out the impact of monetary policy. If we use the traditional definition of inflation as an expansion supply of money, the culprit becomes clear. Who expands the supply of money? Is the Fed and the federal government. So if you accurately define inflation, you know exactly who's to blame. But if the government can fool people into believing that one effect of inflation is inflation, they can blame it on everybody but themselves. This is not to say price shocks and other factors don't cause prices to rise. I don't think any well-meaning economist believes that there aren't other factors besides a expansion of the money supply. This is not to minimize the impacts of those prices increase on our life. The point is, it's important to distinguish inflation, increase in the money supply, causing a general rise in prices, from other factors driving prices higher. Without a precise definition, we lose our ability to talk about the phenomenon of rising prices and monetary expansion with any precision, and the government gets away with harmful policies. Look, if you think that the government's not getting away with harmful policies in this particular case, you need not look far. Just look to the Inflation Reduction Act. That flaming pile of mess going to cause more inflation. I thought this was a cool article. It's about regret in your kitchen remodeling. I have not remodeled my kitchen. I think about it. Don't tell my wife. With the space that I have, I'm not exactly sure what I would do differently. The reason why is we almost have a galley kitchen, and galley kitchens have not been considered in for 30 years, but all of a sudden, the 70s, all of a sudden now, like instead of the open floor plan, people are moving to a more closed floor plan, and now we've got this galley kitchen. I don't know that I want to keep it that way, though. I kind of want to make it bigger. It says if you've recently bought a home, it's normal to second guess some of your decisions, large and small. A whopping 72% of recent home buyers have regrets about their home purchases, according to a recent survey. It was as high as 80% earlier. Many believe they paid too much, which makes sense in this wild market, but most others say their purchase was rushed. Details were overlooked, compromises were made, and now they live with regret every day. Hey, you did not call me as your real estate agent. That's on you. The kitchen is one room where that regret sometimes simmers on low 24/7. Maybe buyers were willing to overlook an out-of-date kitchen if it meant they could afford an otherwise respectable home. Or perhaps they underestimated how much counter space they would actually need. Read on for insight into the regrets homebuyers have about their new kitchens. Our experts offer cheap fixes for some issues and more involved solutions for others. Well, I'm very interested to read about this because when I look at houses, I often point out things in the kitchen at these homes. Counter space is a big deal. And just so you know, when I list homes, I often tell people to get everything off of the counters to make it look like there's more space than there actually is. That means coffee makers, mixers, anything. Get it off the counters. Anyway, we've all moved. This number one is crowded counters. We've all moved into a new place and started unpacking the coffee pot, blender, collection of artisanal olive oils, and that heirloom cookie jar, only to discover there's no room for anything else. Says, I bought a home last year, and one of my biggest regrets is not realizing how little counter space there is. When I was looking at the house, the countertop looked big enough when it was all empty. However, as I put things like an air fryer or a set of knives on the countertop, it felt quite a bit smaller than what I'd imagined. It makes my kitchen feel cramped and small, which makes me not want to stay there too long. Sue says he killed, I'm going to go with Sue. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Says he killed two birds with one stone by keeping the kitchen pin neat and putting away items he's not using. Zachary Smigel, the Pittsburgh-based founder of Real Estate License Wizard, also recommends using an over-the-sink prep board for extra space when you're hosting holiday feasts or big dinner parties. Isn't that something? You bought a house, the countertop is not where you want it to be. And so someone tells you just need to put a prep board over your sink when you're making dinner at Thanksgiving, and everything will be fine. That does not solve the problem, but whatever. Inadequate task lighting. Cooking, of course, requires a lot of highly focused jobs involving sharp tools, hot ovens, and sometimes even an open flame. Struggling to see what you're doing is less than ideal. Many buyers have discovered that the lack of sufficient lighting is a major annoyance and at worst a safety hazard. Lack of task lighting is a frequent issue I see among new home buyers, says Ron Wakarski, CEO of Wise Home Team Realty in Daytona Beach, Florida. But solutions abound. Oh, do they? One quick fix is to install puck lighting inside the cabinets to illuminate every shelf, or you can install spotlights or LED strips onto the underside of the upper cabinets to brighten the counter space. You can. We used to use low voltage lighting. I don't think anybody does that anymore. I don't know. Lack of outlets. Cooking often requires a complex array of helper appliances, blenders, food processors, pressure cookers, etc. Your kitchen is probably teeming with plugs, but a place to plug them? Not so much. Homebuyers often underestimate the number of outlets they actually need, says Milo Cruz, a recent homebuyer and the CMO of Legend Cookware in Chestnut Ridge, New York. They may account for big items such as refrigerator and a microwave, but then fail to consider other necessities, even like a dedicated socket to charge their phone when cooking. The good news is that adding outlets doesn't involve an electrical system remodel. Pop-up countertop outlets are relatively easy to install and work great because they can be tucked away when not in use. Very interesting. I've never seen one. Depending on the complexity of the project, you can also hire an electrician to install a new outlet for between $133 to $296, according to Angie. Cheap countertops. Most countertops made of building-grade materials, think laminate or corrugated, will not stand the test of time. After settling into new homes, many home buyers discover their countertops are warped, scratched, or have tough-to-clean stains. Upgrading a countertop will not only improve your quality of life, really, it will seriously increase the overall value of your kitchen, says John Sanborn, co-founder of Brotherly Love Real Estate in Philadelphia. It is one of the best investments you can make, and the cost is highly dependent on your choice of materials. Sanborn recommends going with the top quality materials such as concrete, limestone, or granite. I like quartz. I like white quartz. I like white subway tile, and I like white cabinets. That's what I like. And I also like the glass inserts in the cabinets. I'm not ashamed to say that. Soft closing on all of those. Trash can in one of the cabinets, yes. Yeah. The white quartz, white cabinets, white subway tile with a dark gray grout. Man, what a kitchen. Low-end appliances, cheap refrigerators and oven not only look bad, but over time they often fail at doing a very specific task they're designed to accomplish. Low-end or builder-grade appliances are the worst, says Robin Burrell, a Texas interior designer at Signature Home Services. Builder get high-volume package deals with appliance companies, and they rarely long-lasting quality units. You might not be ready to replace all of your cheap appliances at once, so Burrell recommends taking a piecemeal approach. Top-notch refrigerators range from $650 to $2,000. Ovens go from $700 to $3,000, and dishwashers typically cost $375 to $1,500. Buy a Bosch dishwasher; they're very nice. I have one. You might not be ready. Buying a house is a huge financial investment, and buyer's regret is completely normal. Make small changes and you can. Next time, double check all the above to sidestep multiple headaches altogether. This is a very not real world article based on what I see in the real world. Like, you buy a house, you've been in there for maybe a half hour, maybe an hour. You're not going to notice everything. You're certainly not going to notice inadequate task lighting. Even when you're in the house, you're not going to know that. The crowded countertops, I mean, I'll see that, but you won't. Lack of outlets, no one's going to see that. Cheap counters, I mean, if you got cheap counters, what kind of drawers and cabinets do you have? Are those also cheap? And would you be able to tell the difference? I know a lot of people won't be able to tell the difference because I go to these houses all the time and I see it and I'm like, I'm not paying extra for that. And then low-end appliances, I mean, whatever. Appliances in the luxury market, yes, that's a big issue. Don't buy cheap appliances if you have a very expensive home. It just diminishes the value of your home. But and regular homes, I mean, just having a refrigerator is like a plus. Redfin, home buyers are looking to relocate to affordable areas, especially in Florida, amid high rates and prices. This is on Redfin. It was published today, so we're pretty good news-wise. It says the share of Redfin users looking to move to different metro area is near its record high as high rates and prices up the appeal of affordable places. Coastal Florida is especially popular even after getting pummeled by Hurricane Ian. Nearly one quarter, 24% of U.S. homebuyers look to move to a different metro area in the 3 months ending in October, on par with the record high of 24% set in the third quarter. That's up from roughly 18% in 2019 before the pandemic ushered the remote work era that gave many Americans more flexibility to relocate. It says the U.S. housing market has cooled significantly during the second half of 2022 as high mortgage rates, inflation, and the stumbling economy deter would-be home buyers and sellers. But the people who are still buying homes, an unprecedented portion are relocating new metros. Many are seeking relatively affordability as near 7% mortgage rates and persistently high home prices make expensive parts of the country even more expensive. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 6.9% in October, up 3.83 percentage points from 3.07 1 year earlier, the largest year-over-year increase during any month since 1981, and that has caused monthly mortgage payments for home buyers to roughly double from a year earlier. While the rates have come down slightly in November, they're still significantly higher than they were last year. All of this is true. I cannot argue with any of this. Now it says home buyers are looking to move to the Sun Belt, especially Florida. Sacramento, Las Vegas, and Miami were the most popular destinations for Redfin.com users to relocate, followed by San Diego and Tampa. Popularity is determined by net inflow, which is the number of people looking to move into a metro minus the number of people looking to leave. Half of the top 10 migration destinations are in Florida. That's despite the fact that the state was hit by Hurricane Ian, one of the deadliest, most destructive storms in U.S. history in September. I did not know that. I was in town. It was the deadliest, most destructive storm. Relatively affordable Sunbelt metros are typically most popular with relocating homebuyers, larger because buyers can get more home for less money. In Las Vegas, for instance, the typical home costs $410,000 in October, roughly half the price of the typical home in Los Angeles, which is $823,000, the most common origin for people moving there. Here they are: Sacramento, Las Vegas, Miami, San Diego, Tampa, Phoenix, Cape Coral, North Port, Sarasota, Dallas, and Orlando. And then let's get into this. Buyers are leaving expensive West Coast and East Coast cities. Major home buyers look to leave San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Washington, D.C., and Boston than any other major metro. That's determined by net outflow as measured by how many more Redfin users look to leave an area than move in. Home buyers typically leave expensive coastal job centers more than they leave other places, a trend that started before the pandemic and picked up steam due to remote work and rising housing costs. They most commonly head to more affordable regions. Sacramento, where homes cost less than half of what they do in the Bay Area, is the most common destination for people to leave San Francisco, for instance. So San Francisco lost 35,800 people. I mean, I don't know if I'm reading this right, but we'll try. Portion of local users searching elsewhere, 24%. The top destination they're looking is Sacramento, and top out of state is Seattle. Los Angeles, 34. Top destination is San Diego, and out of state is Las Vegas. Isn't this interesting? New York, net outflow. Miami, they want to go to Miami. Washington, D.C., they want to go to Maryland. Boston, they want to go to Maine. Chicago, they want to go to Milwaukee. Detroit, they want to go to Cleveland. That's hard to believe. Denver has a net outflow of people, which is absolutely crazy. They're going to Chicago. Seattle, they're going to Phoenix. In Philadelphia, they're going to Maryland. Wow, Maryland is just picking up peeps. This is the last article for tonight. I'll head on out. I'm framing this like so. I don't know that increasing the supply of homes is going to fix inventory or fix affordability. I think we're dealing with something else. I think that inflation there is the loss of the value of money, not not an increase in demand. And I don't think that the supply increasing it is going to fix the affordability problem. Realtors encourage the Biden administration to keep housing supply affordability at the top of its legislative agenda. What does the White House or Congress do anymore? In an effort to keep housing inventory a top legislative priority, following the midterm elections, National Association of Realtors CEO Bob Goldberg met with White House officials and real estate industry leaders last week to discuss possible solutions to the supply crisis. They're saying it's a crisis, which is battering affordability and sidelining more buyers. I mean, that's what they're saying. Realtors have developed a blueprint for addressing a severe inventory shortage and are advocating for legislation on Capitol Hill to help more Americans afford home ownership. National Association of Realtors have long warned that a decade of underinvestment and underbuilding have created a dire housing shortage in America that would require a long-term commitment to overcome. At the meeting, Goldberg and administration officials brainstormed several possible measures to promote greater housing opportunity, including reducing the Federal Housing Administration's mortgage interest premium, lowering Fannie and Freddie's guarantee fees, expanding the Section 8 rental voucher program, and supporting new fair housing initiatives. I do not think supporting new fair housing initiatives has got anything to do with increasing the home supply. I really don't. And somebody point to me why I'm wrong. Goldberg also stressed NAR's opposition to a current proposal to place rent caps on Fannie or Freddie-backed rental properties, which could drive many small housing providers from the market. Increasing the supply of affordable rental housing is a top priority for the association. It's kind of interesting. I don't know that I want a bunch of rentals if I'm a real estate agent. I want to sell houses, but maybe I'm just different. Following Goldberg's meeting, the National Association of Realtors president, Kenny Parcells, sent a letter, not a parcel, to the White House outlining a range of potential inventory solutions, such as broader down payment assistance on the local, state, and federal levels, and access to special purpose credit programs to help better meet the credit needs of underserved borrowers. How are they underserved? When it comes to affordability, the administration has several tools it can use now to reduce costs, especially in higher cost markets where housing options continue to diminish. Parcel writes in the letter, reducing fees for first-time home buyers. They have to pay extra fees than somebody else that buys a home. Expanding housing voucher programs and providing incentives for more participation from housing providers would provide direct and immediate support for renters and aspiring home. Did they not see the National Association of Home Builders index of home builder confidence index? Did they not see that home builders are not confident right now? Like worse than ever before? Why is that? You'd think with the National Association of Realtors lobbying on the behalf of builders across the country, you'd think that they'd be happy. What do they know that the National Association of Realtors don't know? Government investment is necessary to stop the erosion in housing affordability over the long run, encouraging a policy on focus on new construction, zoning reforms, and tax incentives to spur more construction and conversion of vacant commercial space into residential units. I mean, zoning reforms always. Parcel says the National Association of Realtors will continue to collaborate with the administration and other industry groups to put these possible solutions into action, particularly as rising mortgage rates and inflation becomes larger economic issues. Look, if home prices drop and you're just building and building and building houses, you're going to cause it to be dropping even more. I mean, I'm not the president of NAR. I'm just a guy. I'm just a real estate agent going about my day, going about my night. Look, thank you for watching. I'm going to head out. I'm kind of tired. Got a lot of digging to do tomorrow, or starting. I'll take pictures. I'll include you. If you have any questions, If you have a real estate deal going sideways, put it in the comments, put it in the chat. I look at everything. So I try to respond. If you're like mad at me, I feel a little uncomfortable, but I'll say like, thank you. I don't know. It's just who I am. Anyway, I'm out. I'm tired. You guys have a good rest of your evening, and I will see you on the next one, probably tomorrow at 9.